Scotty doesn't know that Fiona and me do it in my van every Sunday.
This is one of those cameos that, like, for years I had no idea was even Matt Damon. I don't know why. Folks, as you know, we at JoBlo enjoy covering our fair share of iconic films and even some lesser known joints for you cinema heads out there. But it is rare around here that the occasional straight up teen comedy will slide across our desk and remind us all what we love about such silly films from our adolescence. And to me, there's almost no better example of one of those kinds of movies than Eurotrip. This is definitely one of those films that came out when I was at a very impressionable time in my life. I thought, what better time to have Chris Bumbray take a trip down memory lane and tell us what the f*** happened to this movie.
Here's an interesting bit of Hollywood trivia for you. Despite having starred in many of the biggest movies of the last 30 years, including Good Will Hunting, Saving Private Ryan, the Jason Bourne films, and The Martian, Matt Damon once said that the movie fans most often quote to him is Eurotrip, with them approaching him singing Scotty Doesn't Know. A notable flop when it came out in 2004, thanks to DVD and streaming, Eurotrip went on to become something of a cult classic, and one that's suddenly become a whole lot more bittersweet due to the tragic passing of one of its stars, Michelle Trachtenberg, who died recently at only 39 years old.
Jamie! Hey!
Well, mostly known for Harriet the Spy and for Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Gossip Girl, many of us here at JoBlo are fond of her charming performance in this underrated flick, which might have been considered just another comedy back in 2004, but in our current laugh-starved movie climate, feels like a real gem. Eurotrip is a quasi-spin-off of Road Trip.
Oi! Stop! Okay, keep doing it, yeah!
A hit comedy from 2000 that was the first theatrical feature for director Todd Phillips and proved to be a major hit for DreamWorks Films.
Hello. Yeah? I'm here for the gangbang?
A studio that's all but been shuttered in recent years, with them focusing exclusively on animation.
You thought you was a guy. I'm getting the video camera.
While Phillips went on to direct the comedy classic Old School for them, the producers of Road Trip opted to make Eurotrip by using the same formula, where a young man, having ruined his chances with the girl of his dreams, races against time with some horny cohorts to set things right. Instead of having the fellas be horny college kids driving across country, Eurotrip focuses on high school grads making their way across Europe. The film is written and directed by Seinfeld alums Jeff Schaffer, Alec Berg, and David Mandel, even though due to DGA rules, Schaffer is the only one with credit. In it, Scott Mechlowitz plays Scotty, a nice high school grad who's recently been dumped.
Fiona!
Having been pen pals with a German student he believes is named Mike, in a drunken, homophobic stupor, he tells off his pen pal when a meeting is suggested, only to discover later that Mike is actually Mike, a gorgeous, blue-eyed, blonde-haired German blonde and quite possibly the girl of his dreams. With his horny best pal Cooper in tow, played by Jacob Pitts, the two set off to Europe in order to make their way to Berlin to find her, meeting up with two of their classmates along the way, the dorky Jamie, played by Travis Wester, and his hot twin sister Jenny, played by Michelle Trachtenberg, who Scott and Cooper have always viewed as one of the guys, until they see her rock a bikini, that is.
I'm a girl from your high school.
No, I mean girls.
Granted, Scotty may not seem like the most sympathetic protagonist nowadays, but one must remember that 2004 was a very different era, and the whole gay panic thing that his character showcases throughout the movie was a staple of the comedy genre back then. It wasn't meant to be mean-spirited, and hey, no one really took offense. It was more of an equal opportunity, let's offend everyone era, which seems to be somewhat lost nowadays. But I digress.
Oh, mi scusi.
The movie is well cast, with Mechlowitz solid as our affable lead, while Pitts does a good job as his horny pal, channeling Sean William Scott, who of course was the king of this kind of role back then, but aged out of playing teens by this point. Travis Wester is cast in the DJ Qualls kind of role as the nerdy guy who naturally turns out to be a stud once they get on the road. But best of all is Michelle Trachtenberg, who's charming as the nice girl next door who turns out to be a major bombshell once they arrive in Europe, much to the confusion of Pitts' Cooper, and indeed the audience at the time, who of course mostly knew her from her younger days as a TV star. Trachtenberg should have been the lead in more movies, but shortly after Eurotrip came out, she landed a very long-running role on Gossip Girl that cemented her as a TV star. So, all certainly worked out well for her. The movie is episodic but quite hilarious, with it packed with cameos. There's Vinnie Jones, the raging football hooligan, who naturally turns out to be pretty nice.
Now please, enlighten me. Who the fuck are you?
If somewhat insane. There's Lucy Lawless as the dominatrix of our dreams and nightmares, of course.
Bring on the Flugelkampfheimler!
Then Fred Armisen as a touchy-feely Italian, Scusi, Jeffrey Tambor, Kristen Kriuk of Smallville as Scotty's very unfaithful girlfriend, and most infamously of all, Matt Damon as the emo singer she's hooking up with, who lip-syncs to Lustra's Scotty Doesn't Know.
Till she's on her knees and Scotty doesn't know. Oh, Scotty doesn't know.
So how did Matt Damon end up in Eurotrip? Apparently, he knew the writers and directors from way back in the day, and he happened to be filming The Brothers Grimm in Prague at the time, where 90% of this movie was shot. And he often popped by the set to visit his pals. Given that he was wearing a wig in Grimm, he was able to shave his head to complete the emo look, and his cameo became something of a classic. Despite it being quite funny, Eurotrip fell really short at the box office, only grossing $17 million domestically. It only made another $3 million internationally. You see, American comedies don't tend to play all that well overseas, especially in China, where they've always kind of been disgusted by the morality of our American gross-out comedies, which is one of the reasons that movies like this just don't get made anymore.
Stop! Hummer time!
Before we continue with our video, here's a reminder to click the Store tab on any of our JoBlo channels and browse our collection of the latest and freshest designs in our merch store. Go get you some.
It's really too bad because there should have been a couple of Eurotrip sequels taking the gang to other continents, but I digress. The movie eventually, as I mentioned earlier, became a cult classic on DVD, and the directors all went on to do really interesting stuff. All three of them worked on Sacha Baron Cohen's The Dictator, as well as on Curb Your Enthusiasm with the role of Seinfeld boss Larry David.
I thought you were a baseball player. You can't catch a goddamn toss.
Schaefer went on to create The League, Mandel went on to be the showrunner of Veep, and Alec Berg went on to co-create Barry. Again, while Eurotrip may not have made a boatload of money, it's still a pretty hilarious movie and a great look back at a much less PC time in comedy when TNA, body jokes, and hardcore R ratings weren't yet taboo. Again, of course, it's also quite bittersweet with the passing of Trachtenberg and a wonderful showcase of her considerable talent as a light comedian. So if you haven't seen Eurotrip, give it a watch. You're gonna laugh your ass off.
Mi scusi.
Oh, no!
Mi scusi.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.